That's what I look for every time I walk into the district office for a meeting. I go in there and see if there's those little sandwich chip bags in there, but alas, they're around. Probably because you're always eating them, Larry.
No, I don't know where they are. If they leave them out, I will eat them. But I think Lisa knows that, and she does me the favor of hiding them.
Yeah.
I think I could find them if I really wanted to, but.
Better if I have a background?
No, well, I like the other thing.
Your other background's nicer.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go
Alan,
back.
where are you?
Looks like you're an ant in a movie. Hanging out in the blades of grass.
Okay, we're live right now, President Ford.
Okay. All right, thank you. It's 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 18th. I'd like to welcome everybody to this study session of the Salt Lake City School Board of Education. We're here to discuss, as we talked about last meeting, the budget. And approving the budget is, as you all know, is one of our primary responsibilities. And Business Administrator Kersley has had we've had the budget on our agenda in some form for different pieces of it for a few months now. And everybody's had an opportunity to meet with him to go through the budget. And as he proposed last meeting, we're gonna go through and answer questions so that you can, he's gonna answer questions so that we can make sure that as we prepare to approve or adopt the budget June 1st, that we're prepared to do that. So I'm going to turn the time to you as a Business Administrator Kersley.
All right, Larry, am I able to, can I share my screen?
You bet. Okay, there you go.
All right, I prepared just a brief little PowerPoint here to kind of give some highlights of the budget. Can you all see that? Great. So next board meeting, when we approve the budget, we'll be approving two things: the 2020-21 revised budget and the 2021-22 original budget. So I've put some highlights on here. So in the 2020-21 revised budget highlights, so the total budget is $338 million. Of that, $239 million are salaries and benefits, or 71%. 58% of the total budgeted revenue is generated from property tax and other local sources. 30% of the total budget revenue is generated from state sources. So that's going to be your WPU and other items we get from the state. 12% of total budgeted revenue is generated from federal sources. Now that percentage of federal money is a little higher than it normally would be due to the CARES and ESSER funds that we received this year. The general fund, as we've discussed, that's where the bulk of our funds are. So I've also highlighted some items from the general fund. The total general fund budget is $270 million, of which $230 million of that is salaries and benefits, or 85% of the general fund is made up of salaries and benefits. Also included in the general fund are our ESSER or CARES funds. For the 2020-21, we budgeted $16.4 million of those funds, which have been budgeted for PPE, sanitization supplies and equipment, technology needs, online education needs, school nurses, extra duties, COVID tracking response, and etc., other items. Now, we received several different sources of COVID money for this year, the 2020-21, because the county allocated some of their CARES to us, and we had several specific grants for hotspots, for the need of the community to be able to get online. So those are all included in that $16.3 million. of the general fund, 50% of our general fund budgeted revenues for the 2020-21 year come from property tax or other local sources. 30% comes from state sources and 13% from federal sources. Now we're jumping over to the 2021-22 original budget. So, and when I say total budget, we're talking our general fund, capital fund, debt service fund, child nutrition fund, everything we get. So the total budget for 21-22 is $330 million, of which 230 or 71% is salaries and benefits. 63% of that comes from property tax and other local sources, 27% from state sources, and 10% from federal sources. Now drilling down just to the general fund, the total general fund is 200.
Sorry.
Yep.
You mind going back to the previous slide? So when you say original budget, does that mean the budget that the board approved last June?
No, so the revised budget is the budget. The revised 2021 is revising the budget that the board approved last June.
Right. So this budget right now that you're saying original budget is going to be for this next school year.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I just want, when it said original, I wasn't sure. So
yeah.
thank
So
you.
this will be the first time the board's approved any budget for the 21-22 year, and so we call that original. And then at this time next year, the board will vote on a revised 21-22 budget. Drilling down to the general fund of next year, $258 million total, of which 225 or 87% is salaries and benefits. Included in next year's budget is $5.7 million of ESSER funds. That's largely ESSER 2 funds. We are hoping to spend all of our ESSER 1 funds by the end of this fiscal year, but if we don't, they will carry over into next year's budget. Those funds are currently budgeted for summer school programs, after school programs, the online school, any other necessary PPE and sanitization supplies and equipment, any technology needs we may have, COVID tracking response, etc. ESSER 3 funds have not been allocated yet, so none of the ESSER 3 funds are included in the 2021-22 budget as of yet. When we get those allocations, we'll add them, and that will be part of the revised budget for next year. Again, for next year, 57% of the general fund revenue comes from property tax and other local sources, 34% from state sources, and 9% from federal sources. As we get the ESSER 3 funds allocated, that 9% will increase, but we won't know how much that is until we actually get the allocation. Capital fund. I'm just really want to highlight 21-22 capital fund, so I'm not going to look at the revised budget for capital. Total expenditures in the capital fund are $23.5 million. The revenues are 27.1. Included in that revenue figure is the $4.6 million in property tax revenue that would be generated from the recapture of the debt service levy. So if you remember, we had some debt mature, and by default, that money would go back to the taxpayers. This budget has us increasing the capital levy to recapture those taxes and put them into the capital fund. Property tax rates for next year, the proposed rate is 0.004945. So even with recapturing that, you can see it's down a little bit from last year, and we've had a continual trending down. That is a result as assessed value goes up, the rate goes down, so we collect the same amount as previous years. So that's why you see that trend, that downward trend in the rates. This schedule you've seen before, but it's showing the certified rate and then the proposed tax rate increase to the capital levy and what the difference is. If we just did the certified rate, taxpayers on a $100,000 home would see a $13.37 decrease from the previous year. If we recapture that $4.6 million, they will still see a $5.61 decrease on a $100,000 home. So they'll still, I mean, they'll still see a decrease as that rate decreases. It'll all depend, for an individual taxpayer, it will depend on what their assessed value comes in at from the county assessor. So that's that presentation. Stop sharing. It's now open to any questions that board members need answered, so they feel that they're prepared to vote on the budget for next board meeting.
Alan, can you
Questions or comments? Go ahead, Mohammed.
yeah, so can you just like in the language that a child would understand, explain to me the property tax?
Right, so property tax, the amount, the way it's designed is we collect the same amount next year as we did the previous year. So as assessed values go up, that rate will come down. So we bring in the same amount of revenue. So in the event we want to collect more than what's called the certified rate, which in this case, we're saying we want to collect more because we're going to add that amount to the capital. So we'll need to go through truth and taxation to have that authorized. So we're going to increase the capital rate above what the certified rate is. So we're saying we will collect more than we did the previous year in the capital. Sorta.
Just give me like an example, you know, someone, you know, owns a home. This is how much they pay, how much they paid last year, and what we're expecting them to pay.
So I'm going to share this screen again, and we'll go through it. It's a $100,000 home. Now I realize very few people probably have a $100,000 valued home, but it helps make the math easier. So let me share this again. So in this example here, we start with a market value $100,000 home, and this is for current year taxes. They get a 55%. We tax only 55% of the value. That's how the tax rules work. So they'll be taxed on $55,000 of assessed value. The 2020 rate was 0.005047. So for every $100,000, that homeowner would pay $277.59. Now in the yellow, the certified rate. So if we were to collect the same amount that we did, if we're going to collect the same amount in 21 as we did in 20, our rate would be 0.004804 times the 55,000. So they would pay $264 a year. As we're proposing an increase to the capital rate to recapture those monies rolling off the debt. So for every $55,000 at a rate of 0.00494, a homeowner would pay $271.98, which is still $5.61 less than the 2020 year where they would have paid $271.59. So then if you had a $200,000 home, you just double all those numbers. If it was a $400,000 home, you'd 4 times all those numbers.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome, Mohammed.
Now I just need to translate that in Arabic or French.
I can't help you on that one.
Other
So-
thoughts, comments? Christy, then Hoeli. Go ahead.
I think Huali had his hand up before me. He can go ahead and go.
Okay, yeah, so my main question is, we're having this study session in order for us to be more informed so that next board meeting, we can vote on 2 budgets or just 1 budget
You're voting on two. You're voting on the revised 2020-21 and the original 2021-22.
Okay, cool. So the budget that's for this academic school year that's ending, just because we want to approve all the revisions that happened,
Correct.
and then the incoming school year to just, saying we're ready to start that school year with, with this budget. And so those are the two budgets we are talking about and learning about more continually, and so we can vote on next time, right?
Yep, that is correct.
Cool.
Thanks, Alan. I always feel like, putting it down to the layman's level for all of us is sometimes hard to do, but you have tried really hard to do that for us. So, okay, it's based on the question that Hoali just asked, which I think is important. So you look at the revised budget, which is the 300 million, right? The 338.
Correct.
Right? Which is the budget that we approved as a previous board last June. And I'm just wondering that to better inform us as board members, if you would be able to, not tonight, but to provide a report to us that would show what the budget was, in June last year that we approved. And then what the difference is between the two. You already touched on it that we got the ESSER funds, but I think what would be helpful is for us to be able to see why this is important. That in the beginning, this June, we're going to be approving a budget, which we know is organic and can grow or deplete depending on whatever the funds are. But I'm wondering if we have a great example right now of this year's current budget to be able to have you do a report and say, here are the areas and highlight them, whether it's with the ESSER funds or stipends or, additional funding that we received, like you said, with the county, with those kinds of things, so that they would be able to see, and myself be able to see how a budget grows or depletes, because there might be some areas from the legislature that we might not be able to get the same amount of money again.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if we could make that request of you to do a report for us, so that it would be a great training for us to be able to see, here's what last year's budget was that was approved in June. This is where it's at as the revised budget. And these are the things that made it look that way. And that I think would be helpful, to be able to see that. And then we'd have a comparable to when we do this again next June with you. And I think that might be helpful, to do that. So I'm glad you touched on that. What we're approving is the revised budget, the proposed budget, and then the tax rate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so, and that's why we have to have a public hearing, is because of to approve the budget, but also the tax rate, correct? But we won't do that until June. Is that right?
There will actually be
August.
Yeah, there'll be two chances. So you'll vote on the tax rate, but there's then one more chance at the Truth and Taxation hearing in August.
In August, right? And that would just be specific to the tax rate, correct? So I think that, I'm guessing that my fellow board members would love to have some talking points around the tax rate, so that as we reach out to our school community councils, which is usually the best, point for us to be able to say, this is why we're doing this. We'd be using, although you've stipulated that we would be going into the capital budget, but maybe for me, it would be better, and I'm guessing for everybody else, to be able to tell our constituents, this is what we'd be using the money for, not just to replenish the capital budget, but to be able to say, we're going to be using it for, and just because I can't say this word, I'm going to end up saying vegetables, I'm sure, vegetables, right? That was one of the things that, that you said, but I think that would be helpful for us to have that through the summer, so we can reach out, and then our school community councils could then filter it out to their members, just so that we'd have some talking points around that tax increase and that hearing that we would have. When we do that, then it seems like we don't have very many people come and yell at us in August, about whether or not we're going to raise those taxes.
Yeah,
So
because we'll be doing the vegetables And also, as we're preparing in October, we'll present a report on the sustainability. So there'll be some sustainability cost of that resolution that was passed
Mhm.
for solar, lighting.
For
et cetera.
sustainability, right?
Yep.
So Nate, Melissa, I don't think that we need to have it as a part of our meeting in our next board meeting. Alan, I think could just send that out as a report to us,
Okay.
to provide that information of that side by side to be able to see what that looks like. Would that be all right, Alan, to be able to?
Yeah, and what I prepare, if you like it, because our financial statements have us, for the general fund only, have a original budget, revised budget, and actual statement in it. The budget book doesn't, but maybe I'll look and say, should it? And I think maybe it should. And for next cycle, we could add that type of schedule in there.
I think that that would be great. You know, again, just taking that opportunity to train together, you know, as we can help each other answer some of those questions. Because Mohammed, I just want you to know that the certified tax rate took a long time for me to understand how that floats. So, you know, it's not something that you can jump right into right in the beginning. So, Alan, then the proposed budget, or the new budget, or original budget, as you're calling it, does not have the ESSER 3 funds yet because they haven't been allocated. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you have an idea of what type of allocation it might be?
I've heard rumor it's 2 to 2.5 times what our ESSER 2 funds were, and our ESSER 2 were $17.4 million. So somewhere in the $30 million range, potentially.
And that, I guess, we consider new money, which of course, you know, like you said, you'd come back with a recommendation on budgeting that. Okay, I think I hit, let me just make sure I did. I think I got everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Other comments, questions about this? We do have a space for discussion on this topic in our meeting a little bit later tonight, so that we can have had an opportunity to discuss. I think that that might be a good opportunity for us just to make sure we're all on the same page. I think what Christy's suggesting in terms of having that report, if it's not too much, Alan, I think would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, you won't have it by our discussion agenda today.
Not by today, but in an email before the next meeting, if that's what I'm hearing. I'm seeing nods from the board, but that's something we can address in the next portion of the meeting if you'd like to. We have other questions for board members, from board members. I'll echo what Christy was saying. I do want to be able to have an opportunity to share with my community, both at SCCs and my neighborhood community councils, what this budget, you know, looks like, and what the tax increase would look like for them as well. So I appreciate an opportunity to do that before we make a final decision on it.
So one question I have, I guess the last one, is for the next coming school year. We talked about how we would also have a hearing for the board members compensation, and so that's that's also included in that next year's budget too, right? Is that part of that? That's why we decided to have those kind of in the same time, right?
So it's not budgeted at this point, because we haven't really discussed it, but then that would be a part of a revised budget for next year.
Oh, okay.
First, what we'll do is have a hearing, a public hearing on that next board meeting. Was it at the request of the board in the last meeting. So June 1st, we'll have a public hearing about the board member compensation. If that's something we want to move forward, it will affect the budget a little bit if the board chooses to increase salaries. Is that a fair assessment of that?
Who has the bird? Is that a bird?
Yes, that's me.
Okay.
Sorry.
I kept thinking, is that me? Am I hearing things?
No,
Okay, thanks.
it's a bird singing.
Okay.
Yep. Hey, I know that this is something that all of you take very seriously, and I will just say thank you for the time, board members, that you put into understanding this budget, and to our superintendent Madden, who oversees this, and then especially to business administrator Kersley. This is really his first full year as our business administrator and going through this process, and I'm grateful for the time you've been willing to give to board members in helping us understand where we're at and taking this responsibility as seriously as we do. Do we have any other questions or comments before we can move on? If we don't.
Where are you, Melissa? Are you in India or somewhere?
Oh, no, I'm actually in Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
Mamma mia.
You can hear the birds.
Mm.
All right. Thank you for that. So we have scheduled it at 6 o'clock to do our closed executive session. I think that we could entertain a motion to do that now if the board is willing. Okay, I would accept a motion to enter a closed executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation, negotiations, and property.
President Ford, I'll go ahead and move that we enter into a closed executive session for the purpose of litigation, negotiations, and or property, and potentially character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, and or deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems today, May 18th, 2021 at 5:56 p.m.
Thanks, Nate. Do I have a second to that motion?
I second it.
Okay. Motion by Nate and seconded by Hoa Lee. Let's go ahead and vote precinct 1 through 7 on this motion to go into closed executive session for the purpose of litigation. Go ahead, Hoa.
I'm just gonna say yes. Really, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
And Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Let's go ahead and close the meeting.
Just waiting on Sam to make us live. Okay, we're live, President Ford.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Madden. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight for this public board meeting of the Salt Lake City School Board of Education. It's Tuesday, May 18th, 6:32 p.m. Welcome to all board members and district employees who are participating. Also like to make a special welcome to our employee group representatives. And that's James Tobler from SLEA, Nicole. I'm going to forget Nicole's last name now, but Nicole from SLASA, thank you, principal of Rose Park. Sorry, and our classified reps. We've got B. Alonzo from Child Nutrition, Terry Copa from Transportation, Jay Olson from Buildings and Grounds, and Steve Russo from SLEOPA, and it's Cindy Mills, who's our board representative from SLEOPA. So thank you for participating in our meeting and welcome. I'd like to have everybody stand and join with me in repeating the Pledge of Allegiance. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Superintendent Madden, I'd like to turn the time to you now to recognize some great people who've supported our students in many ways for many years. Superintendent.
Yep. Thank you, President Ford. So we have, I just want to send out a big thanks to the 48 employees that are retiring this year. We want them to know we appreciate all you've done for the district, the positive impact that you've had on our students. It takes a community, and we're proud that you are part of our community. We wish you all the best in retirement and want you to know that you will be missed. And I'm going to just quickly, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through who you actually are. So I'm going to read the names. This is Jose Larios, Deborah Krebs, Robin Anderson, Sydney Smith, Gus Bablis, Ray Searles, Janine Nielsen, Christian Ward, Kenya Curran, Martin Bobb, Merv Brewer, Joe Pogligen, Larry Anderson, Ricardo Zubiati, Julia Balcom, Rebecca Benyon, Karen Bischoff, Marion Broadhead, Tina Brunetti Mumford, Brady Donaldson, Carolyn Ebert, Julie Foley, Rose Gaknick Flores, Ellen Jean, Dory Hammock, Jody Iwasaki, Patrick Jeffries, Marianne Jones, Joseph Ling, Leslie Lewis, me, Richard Magleby, Ann Melville, Lisa Morley, Lorna Parkinson, Peggy Patterson, John Peasley, Victoria Piper, Stacy Pugmire, Michelle Riggs, Desiree Robinson, Linda Roundy, Gary Rowles, Mary Smithson, Jeff Sorensen, Betsy Spiegel, Myra Waters, Stephanie Woodland, and Susan Rathall. And I know a lot of those folks, and so congratulations to all of you, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Superintendent. I heard many names on there of individuals who've directly impacted my own children, and I'm grateful for that. And I suspect that as is the case, anybody listening can find a connection on that list to somebody who has significantly impacted them. Thank you for all your work in all you've done to support our students over many years. We can't say it enough. Thank you. All right, we will now move to our consent agenda, which consists of the purchasing and accounting reports and the quitclaim property from the state of Utah. And I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I can do that, Melissa. So I move that
Thanks,
we
Christy.
accept the consent agenda, which consists of the purchasing and accounting reports. The purchasing report for fiscal year 2021 and the fiscal report 21-22 and the quitclaim property state of Utah.
Thanks. I have a motion from Christy. Do I have a second?
I'll second President Ford.
Seconded by Nate. Have any discussion to this, to the motion on the consent agenda? Okay. All right, seeing none, this time we'll vote going precinct 7 down to 1.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Starting with you. Okay. Melissa Ford, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Catherine had to step away for a minute. Jenny?
Jenny Sika, yes.
Nicola, yes.
We will accept the consent agenda. We don't have anybody signed up for request to speak. Is that true, Superintendent Madden?
Yes, that's true. There's no one in the waiting room.
you. We always appreciate when we have community members who will come and speak to us, and we're grateful for that engagement when it happens. Let's go ahead and move to the discussion agenda, which will begin with the COVID update from Superintendent Madden.
Okay, so first item is we have our Tuesday morning health department meeting, and it was pretty encouraging this morning. Sorry you weren't there, President Ford. But they talked about the plateau that we had been in has actually turned into a decline, which is very positive. The leading age group is still the 10 to 19 group, which is just only slightly higher than the 20 to 29. But the health department was quite optimistic. There's still been a few outbreaks in some schools, generally related to situations where there were concentrated groups of students that were unmasked, but the numbers have been low. Our numbers in the district are still quite low. We have 23 schools with no cases, 11 schools with 1 case, 3 schools with 2, and 3 with 4. But some of those are even going to be going down now. They kind of anticipated that things would continue to improve really into July, and that this may become more of a seasonal problem, not predicted necessarily to go away. They did talk a little bit about vaccinations. The uptake hasn't been everything that we would necessarily hope it would be, but there may be some booster shots coming. Those things are still kind of up in the air. The one thing I did want to speak to one point. On May 13th, Governor Cox announced that the state would be lifting the mandate on masks for the last week of school. And he added that individual school districts could keep the mandate for the last week of school if they felt it was needed. And so for me, I think we've come too far to let go of proven practices like mask wearing with just a few days left in the school year. We've been able to offer vaccinations to our educators, staff, and students, but very few of our students have actually vaccinated at this point. The risk is too great, especially when we consider those in our communities with pre-existing health conditions or who have family members at home who are high risk for contracting COVID-19. The last thing we want to do is increase the risk in our city just as school's about to let out for the summer. I do feel like we've made decisions all year based on science and sound guidance from public health experts. This weekend, the CDC issued some clarification on what they had said earlier to explain that, in spite of the general recommendation that fully vaccinated individuals may safely forego wearing masks in many settings, K-12 schools should continue to require masks in schools and continue practicing COVID-19 safety protocols through the end of the 2020-2021 school year. So we intend to leave the current mask requirements in place through the end of the school year per the recommendation of the CDC and local health experts. I'd also like to express that we're grateful for the diligence of the students and families and staff that have followed the safety protocols this school year, and ask that they continue to support that during the last week of school. Also like to encourage all eligible to get the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. And it's now available at primary care providers and in pharmacies. There's some of these larger events are getting a little less tenable at this point. I will say that I have received some feedback since the governor made that announcement, and every piece of that feedback that I have received has been encouraging us to maintain our mask requirement for the remainder of the school year. I will say this, that for us, the last week of school, the Monday, it said the recommendation from the governor said starting on the Monday of the last week of school, that latitude would be allowed to school districts. We only have one day. June 7th is our last day and it's a Monday. So what we're asking is for people to maintain the mask requirement for one day. For summer school, that starts on the 14th. I think right now we'll kind of have to see how things go, but we would at least give a strong recommendation for the use of masks. And we may want to revisit that as we get a little closer. I'd like to, I don't know if there's any questions on that part. And if there's not, I'd like to actually turn the time over to Ms. Pittum from school leadership to give a little update on graduation.
let's go ahead and continue with Ms.
Go ahead,
Pidham. And then if we've got questions or comments after this whole report, we'll take them. Thank you, Superintendent.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent and board members. I'm excited just to give you a quick update on graduation. We've been meeting with the University of Utah. In fact, just this week, last week, excuse me, we met with the University of Utah twice. We actually were there on campus, walked through where we will be and how we will make this work for graduation so that it is safe and an enjoyable experience for everyone. The university has been so generous. They're wonderful to work with. We'll have 4 guests for every student, which turned out to be more than we had originally been told. So we're pleased with that. The students will enter on the east side of the building, and families will enter on the 4 guests will enter on the west side of the building. They are very, very organized up there. It'll be a little different than it's been in the past. Our programs will be electronic. They don't want to have any paper programs there. Our tickets for East, West, and Highland, they'll have electronic tickets, and we'll be giving that information out in the next week or so. And Horizonte will have paper tickets. So it's an exciting time. The events will also be streamed and using this YouTube channel, our district YouTube channel, and Sam Quantz has been wonderful about meeting with the University of Utah to make sure that that's going to run smoothly. Our graduations for Innovations and SLCSD and also SPA are well on their way. It's an exciting time for everyone. And we just look forward to this great chance to be able to celebrate with our students this year. Any questions?
Thanks, Becky.
You bet. Oh, Larry, can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
There was a rumor about the University of Utah that I'll take a second to dispel. There was a rumor that only 150 students would be allowed to walk across the stage. That's just not true at all. But every student, every graduate's going to walk across that stage. And we're excited about that. Since we have to social distance, right? There's only room for 160 students on the floor. And our schools have decided to run a lottery so that any student who wants to be on the floor will just put their name in a bucket or a hat, and we'll pull out those 160 students. And that way it's fair and equitable, and any student who wants that opportunity has an equal opportunity for that. The rest of the students will be sitting in sections X and Y. So just wanted to make sure that you all knew every student will walk across the stage, and we're excited for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pidham. I appreciate that and the work that you've done on this. I know it's been a lot, and I'm glad that our students are going to be able to get a graduation experience that resembles what they maybe traditionally would expect. Do I have questions from board members about either superintendent's report or Ms. Pidham's? OLE?
My question is, I'm glad I didn't come up here, but my main question is that the students could wear, their cap and gown and stuff, but they can wear their the leis and other stuff. Because I've heard, even when I was in school and other years, supposedly the school district or Huntsman, the University of Utah would not allow those things, which I always thought it was annoying, and it frustrates the families and the graduates. So I'm glad that wasn't a direction or anything, and I'm always going to make sure that we advocate to make sure that that's allowed, because there's no reason to that.
Thank you. We actually did when we met with them last week, and originally they said no leis, they're too much of a mess, and we said, look, this is part of our students' culture. It's so important that we do this. And they got back to us and said, okay, we got permission, and we're making that possible. You bet.
Thank you. Thank you. That's super important. And like I said, I for some reason, that's always a battle for some reason. I don't know. That's what I at least feel in here, but I'm glad that that's resolved. And for sure this year, it's going to be clear. Thank you.
You bet.
Mohammed. Go ahead, Mohammed, then Christine.
Ms. Pidham, thank you so much for everything you're doing. It's always great to hear from you. My question is about like students with disability. Are they going to be given a priority during the graduation? How is that happening?
Absolutely. And in fact, we are specifically talking to the university to make sure we have the right elevator for them, that we are making sure that they have exactly what they need, that they'll be seated where they can be comfortable and have the help they need. We want this to be a positive experience for everyone.
Is it my turn, Melissa? Sorry.
Go ahead, Christy.
Okay, Superintendent. So I know that we all know that there's a special session tomorrow. And if the legislature does in fact ban masks, what would that do? I mean, we would have to follow that. Is that correct? Or what? How would we proceed?
I might let Yandri speak to that. She was listening today to the session. Go ahead, Yandri.
Yes, so the bill that's going to be heard tomorrow passed out of committee today, 16 to 7, but it applies to next school year. So after this 2020-21 year ends, that's when this bill would take effect. And the goal of the bill is for families to know with certainty that there won't be any sort of mask mandate. It prohibits LEAs from acting based on local conditions and implementing a mask mandate if they feel like that's needed.
Yandri, is it clear that that's fall? Where does summer fit into all of that?
It says I'm so sorry, guys. It says after the end of the last day of the 2020-21 school year. So I believe summer would be included in that. There are a few changes that are being discussed because a concern that was brought up by several legislators is the fact that the local control is being removed. So there might be some provisions added to indicate that, for example, if conditions in a local area change, then the LEA would need to work closely with the local health department to implement some sort of regulation. But that language is not currently in the bill. There may be other changes, and I will definitely keep you posted.
Yeah, that's compatible with what the health department said this morning too.
What they said this morning.
Yes.
Well, that's good to hear because that it seemed to have conflicting stories in the news, so it's good to have that clarification that whatever they do will not affect this school year.
Thank you for that clarification, Yandri, and for keeping us posted on how that progresses.
Yes, of course.
Do I have any other comments or questions from board members? Thank you for the careful thought you put into the superintendent, and appreciate all the work you've put into graduation, Ms. Pidham. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move to the next item on our discussion agenda, which is the approval of HB 58 positive behavior plans. And at your end of your report, and I believe we have Ms. Sutherland here, who's the Director of Social and Emotional Learning. Correct me if I got your title wrong, Ms. Sutherland, but thank you for being here. All right, I'll let you lead the beginning of this discussion, and I know from what you've sent to us that you're hoping for these plans to be approved.
Yeah, right. So mainly each school wrote a plan in the fall, and we about how their school addresses substance use, and specifically vaping and e-cigarettes. And that was the, per HB 58. And then we checked in several times throughout the year. And then they had a report due, an end of year report that was due by May 1st to me. And that's what I've passed on to you all. The state has not provided, because this bill was brand new last March, and this was the first full school year for it, the state has not provided like templates or examples or anything. As you can imagine, it's the first year of the House bill. So a lot of the templates were designed by me, and throughout the year, I've taken note of some things that we could alter for next year. But I feel like the reports that were turned in are pretty good in terms of like updating the school board on what's happened with those programs this year and what next steps the schools are going to take. You noticed that a lot of the programs were paused due to COVID. And you know, some of those things will be back in place when we have a more typical school year. So yeah, I would love it if you all would approve the plans or the reports, and then those reports will be used to build a plan next fall, and the cycle will sort of start over next August. I'm happy to answer any questions, or also if you have feedback or concerns, I can also, you know, take those as well.
Board members, do you have comments on these? It was a lot of reading that you provided for us. I actually really mostly appreciated the opportunity I had to hear those reports in SEC meetings, because they meant more to me. I understood them. Understood them is the wrong way, but I felt like I had a better sense of what was actually happening by hearing them in person versus reading them on a template. I didn't see an opportunity for us to provide feedback to you on those plans, and maybe that's something we want to consider building into the future. But I certainly enjoyed the opportunity to review what good things our schools are doing on this subject, and how well researched it was. And there were so many, you know, research citations on what they were basing their plans on, and it was great for me to see.
Yeah, the feedback element, I'll definitely let me think more about that piece. I wasn't totally sure how that would work this year as well. So let me think more about that in the future cycles.
Yeah, that's great with me. I'm not asking that I'm just saying that might be something to consider, how you want us to provide feedback on them, since we are approving them. Do I have other board members? Christy?
Emily, I just want to thank you for the great work that you're doing. Like Melissa, I think it's really good for us to be able to hear, you know, what's happening at the school, boots on the ground, you know, what they're thinking about, you know, for their communities and how that works. And so even though it was some reading, you know, for me to look at the other schools, I really appreciated it. I also want to thank you for the due diligence. You know, sometimes when a new thing comes along and you have to make some changes really quickly, I think that our district has always pushed forward on that and has been very proactive. And that certainly speaks volumes with these positive behavior plans. So, you know, the e-cigarettes, it's just always so shocking to me that how young the kids are, you know, that are trying that. And so I know we've talked about that as a board, we've supported legislation. And I think having these programs in place and talking about it in the elementary schools especially is important. So thank you so much for all that work, and just appreciate my schools and the schools across our district that have really undertaken this and have been positive and very proactive. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Oh, Ellie, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, when I was teaching health 5-6 years ago, it was in high school. It was, you know, e-cigarettes was still kind of new, but it wasn't in the curriculum at all. I would like bring it up all the time because that's they were using it. I was like, so I was like, you know, especially horizontally, it's like, you know, there's the different places around there and State Street and stuff. And so I would always, I'm glad that the state moved forward and, you know, kind of pushed it, but then it's kind of annoying that you had to do all the work, you know, they didn't give you templates, but at least, you know, I'm looking at the templates, they look robust. And like I said, we can always adjust things, but I think that's great to see how they're going to move forward. You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, I think we could learn a lot from how the criminalization of drugs happened in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and how DARE wasn't very effective, and some of the DARE program wasn't as effective. And I think the way we're going to address the drugs that are happening now that are affecting people's health, it could be a lot more culturally responsive and trauma informed, and all these different best practices that are out there. And so I'm glad that that's happening in there, based on some of the schools, because that's real. And yeah, I love how everything's good. I'm feeling good with where it is, and especially since it's kind of starting for the first time, really, because of the pandemic. We didn't really get a good first foot in the door for the whole process. It was just like, I can only imagine how a teacher had to feel trying to do this on top of everything else. And so this next year, I want to see and help, and I would even love to be in the class to see when they teach it, or just the programs that they have. Some of them are not even classes, just like programs, and so things like that.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other comments, board members? Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, President Ford. And Emily, I feel really bad. I had some technical difficulties. So when I went to review, all the plans, it gave me an access denied warning or notification of some kind. But I have a pretty good sense of the work that you do, and always trust what you bring to the table for us, and hearing the feedback and comments from my colleagues on the board tonight. I'm 100% behind, supporting these plans tonight. And I have heard, obviously, in a couple of the SEC meetings that I attend, just the progress and the work that's been done on these. So I'll follow up with Larry and Sam and Alan post this meeting to work out the technical difficulties that I had tonight.
I actually did have a conversation with Lisa, who put these together, and I think we need to put them together in a different format next year. So
Okay.
we've already got a plan for that.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Mhm.
Melissa, I will make a motion to move HB 58 positive behavior plan to our action agenda.
Thank you, Christy. Do I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, so I've got a motion by Christy and a second by Hoeli to move this approval of HB 58 positive behavior plan end of year report to action agenda. If there's no discussion to moving it to action, let's go ahead and vote on moving it to action. And we'll go back to voting 1 through 7.
Huele, yes.
Moving this to action. Hoeli, yes. Okay.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay. So we have moved to action the positive HB 58 positive behavior plan end of year report. Following our process that we've used this year, let's go ahead and take action on that right now. Do I have a motion?
I can do that again. I move
Thanks,
that we
Christy.
approve HB 58 positive behavior plan.
I second it.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second. Any discussion to the motion that we approve the HB 58 positive behavior plans? I see none. We'll go ahead and vote. This time we'll go backward, 7-1.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Huele, yes.
So thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Appreciate you being here. I appreciate the significant amount of work that has clearly gone into these plans by you and by all the schools. So I hope you'll share our support and thanks to the schools.
I will definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item on our discussion agenda, which is a discussion about the draft budget. We want it here on discussion to follow up on anything that we might have to carry over from our previous board study session earlier this evening, or anything that's come up for board members. One thing that I think we would like to suggest based on our study session earlier is that we have a report from a business administrator Kersley that demonstrates in the spreadsheet that he's got that shows what the budget was last year, what the revised budget is, and what the changes are. Business Administrator Kersley, do you want to kind of lead out on what you'd like this discussion to be?
Right. First, I just want to point out, we're calling it right now a draft budget because we're continually reviewing it. I've already found a couple formatting errors, as we look for formatting, spelling errors, etc. But no, I do not anticipate the numbers to change unless we found an error. If it were a significant error, I would point that out in our next meeting or in an email, but I don't anticipate to find errors in the actual numbers. So we'll continue to review that before it gets posted on the next agenda. Again, this is the budget, revised budget for 2020-21 school year, as well as the original budget for 2021-22 school year. We will be voting on this, well, the board will be voting on approving these budgets on our next board meeting. We've kind of discussed these. We discussed them earlier. Are there any further questions? Basically, I want the board to feel comfortable next board meeting that as they're asked to vote on approving these budgets, that they feel they've had a chance to have all their questions answered.
Go ahead, Catherine. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, Alan, that although we will do a truth and taxation meeting, that under your proposal, that actually our constituents' taxes will actually go down a little bit. Is that correct?
I mean, it all depends on what their assessed valuation is, but with no change in assessed valuation, yes, they would go down.
As long as the value of your house stays the same, you'll be paying a little bit less taxes. Yes. Despite the fact that we'll have truth and taxation.
Correct.
That's important clarification. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that. Any other comments from board members on the budget discussion about it? Nate?
Yeah, no questions, Alan. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you and go over the budget book. And I would encourage any of our board members who haven't had a chance to do that yet to make the time. I'd hope that you'd still be able to work with folks on scheduling that, Alan, but just thank you for all of your work putting this together, and we'll see what folks say on the 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants to go, even if we've already met and you want to meet again, I'm open to meet between now and when we meet again on June 1st to go over any questions you may have.
Alan, could I ask a quick question kind of off of what Catherine just mentioned, which I think, is obviously important that we have that information. When you're looking at a timeline of our property taxes and the assessed value can come at any time, right? I mean, the county decides specific areas or the city decides specific areas, that they're going to look at assessed values, or do they, send out a survey? I think it's important for everyone to understand that, the assessed value may stay flat, but then when the tax notices come out next year, there could have been a change. So can you kind of talk a little bit how that happens, the assessed values?
Right. So the valuation process, they don't reevaluate all properties within the city at the same time. They do take chunks each year. So 1 year, depending on if it was your turn, you may see a pretty significant jump in your assessed valuation because maybe they haven't given a thorough review over the last couple of years. I don't know exactly when they do those. I know they start getting the valuations as early as January. So what happens in one house with one house may not be the same thing that happens with another house. It just depends on when it's your turn for a good review from the assessor's office. And I just want to note that the school district does not, we don't have anything to do with those assessed valuations.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I think that's so important, for us to understand that. And that it isn't the school district, that makes that determination at all. And you're right, it does come in chunks. I know in the past that we've looked at, I think all of our tax notices, were given as examples. Obviously, our names are taken off of it, so you don't know who they are. But you could see the differences, of some that were taxed and some that weren't. And so I appreciate that clarification and Catherine's statement too, because I think that it's not citywide, that always looks the same. It could be a chunk here or a chunk there that is assessed while your neighbor is not.
Yeah, so even though we may say your taxes may go down, well, again, it depends on what your evaluation is. Some taxpayers would pay more and some may pay less and some may pay the same, just depending on what that valuation looks like.
But if the valuation were the same, our taxes would go down. So actually, while we're doing truth in taxation, we're still doing our taxes are still going down if all things were the same. Correct. And I just would like to add on to what Christy said, which was very helpful, to say that if taxpayers do think that their house, there's been some mistake with their assessment, that they can go talk to the city about that assessment. So that's always a possibility if people think that there's been some error or that their house has been assessed in the wrong way.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. We have any other items for discussion from board members on the draft budget?
Melissa, sorry, I just wanted to say thank you for the study session that we had earlier. I appreciate that Alan is going to be providing a report, to the board members, as you mentioned, of being able to have a comparison, to look at what the approved budget was last June and what it looks like now, so that board members can use that as an opportunity for training. And then also that our business office will be putting together talking points for us to provide out to our communities in regards to the truth and taxation hearing that we'll be going through in August.
Thank you, Christy. I appreciate that follow through. And business administrator, do you feel like you've got the feedback you need as we move forward?
Yes, yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay. This has been a great process to go through. We have new board members, we have a new business administrator, and it's always a learning curve, I think, for all of us. I mean, I know it is for me, and I appreciate the time that I've been able to spend with business administrator Kersley over the last few weeks, learning about the budget again, so that I feel really comfortable in sharing it with my community, because it's an important part of our responsibility as a board. And I appreciate the opportunity to learn with you all together as we do that, and honor that responsibility. So a huge thank you to you, Alan. We really appreciate what you're doing, and we'll continue to learn and grow together. We can always make things better, and I appreciate that. All right, that's the last item on our discussion agenda. So if there's no further discussion there, I'd like to move to our action agenda, which just consists now of the property transfer. And we talked about it. We talked about it in 2 meetings, and we'd like to now ask the board to take action. And Business Administrator Kersley, I'm going to go ahead and let you speak first on this.
Great. So as we've talked, there is that little piece of property down south of our district that was annexed from Salt Lake City into Mill Creek. So what we're asking today is if we would like to relinquish that property, the taxing of that property over to Granite School District, who the rest of Mill Creek City is with. So we're asking you to vote yes if we want to transfer the taxing rights to Granite School District of that piece of property. A no vote would be no, we just keep it as is, keep the status quo, and the Salt Lake City School District will continue to collect taxes on that property. So that's just clarification of what we're asking on the vote there.
So I'm happy to entertain a motion on this. Do we need a little discussion about it first?
Yeah, so I could, well, it's in action right now. We haven't made a motion, so we can have discussion before the motion, I guess. That's technically, but but my biggest thing, I think what I brought up last time was how it was how much $1,000 was it that it brings in every year?
It's about 40,000 a year.
40,000, yeah, which is like kind of like similar to a potential salary of someone, I guess, depending on what they're doing, right? The biggest like good thing that comes from us giving it to them is that we can, in terms of its marketing, it's easier to say that the boundaries of the Salt Lake City, of the city, is the same as the Salt Lake School District, and outside of that, that there's not bigger benefits, right? There is a financial benefits we get if we keep it, and if we lose, and we lose it, the only real benefits the marketing. That's what the takeaway was from last time's conversation, right?
Correct. Your assessment sounds pretty good.
Thanks, Willie. Go ahead, Christy.
So I appreciate the information that Alan has given us, and it's right along it's in my precinct, that little weird bump. I've got a lot of little weird bumps around the southern end of mine. I just always have a little consternation about, giving away property and tax revenue. And so even though it's a small amount of money, in a sense, it still is, equates to a salary. And eventually that, if we decided not to do it, and we went into the RDA or CRA, whatever they might put together, it might eventually grow, more tax revenue. That's a possibility. But at this point, for me, I just feel like it's one of those things that's just a little hard for me to say, okay, let's give away that tax revenue. But understandably, the argument that Alan has given, is something to consider.
Thanks, Christy. Mohammed?
Yeah, Alan, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it is very weird. Cut out, it's like a gerrymandering. And I just have one question. If you could just explain to the public, how has this come about? Is it like a request from Granite about that property, or is it based on our assessment? How did that come about?
So it came about when we were approached by Mill Creek City to participate in their Community Redevelopment Agency, or CRDA. And I'm like, why are you calling us? We're not part of Mill Creek City. And then as we investigated further, we found out, oh, it's this little piece of property that, even though Salt Lake City transferred it over to Mill Creek City, the taxing rights did not transfer. Well, Salt Lake City probably transferred theirs to Mill Creek City, but as far as the school district goes, we are still the taxing entity of record of that property, even though it's now in Mill Creek City. So that's how the conversation came up. And so as we were researching it, they said, well, would you consider transferring the taxing rights to Granite? And so that's kind of what we're asking the board to say, yes, we want to, or no, we don't want to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Nate.
Thank you. Alan, just relative to the context of the CRDA piece, would we still, if we maintain this property, needing to be engaged with Mill Creek municipal government and that CRDA work, similarly to what we do with Salt Lake City Corporation?
Right. So if we maintain the taxing rights of the property, Mill Creek will probably want to come and present their CRDA information. And, you know, we approved back in January our new policy regarding, you know, how we'll review and analyze CRDA proposals. So we would then have a discussion with the board to invite Mill Creek to come and present their CRDA information to the board at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Mohammed, do you have another question or comment?
Just like I'm sure like the public are wondering, like, what are these abbreviations? I wouldn't blame them. So just the CRDA basically is a capital region development.
Community Redevelopment Agency.
Okay.
So what that will do is similar to a redevelopment agency. It'll cap the property tax that we would get to collect at a certain level. And then as Mill Creek goes in and develops whatever their plans are for that property, as the value increases and the property tax increases, we wouldn't collect that. That would go to the Mill Creek CRDA until at which point that CRDA had an end date, and then whatever growth was at that point would come back to the district as property tax growth.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering that, Alan. It's here on action because I know you're wanting to be able to give a response to the county, to Mill Creek City on this. And so that's why I would be happy to entertain a motion. I'm happy to just take a second and tell you my 2 cents, which is the same as it was at the last meeting. Even with time to think about it, I'm still reluctant to give up even $40,000. And if there's potential for growth there, I'm especially reluctant to give it up. So that's kind of where I'm at and still at. But I am happy to take a motion so that we can give a response. Is that what that's what you're looking for, right?
Right. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Yep.
Okay. Nate, I see your hand.
Yeah, President Ford, I move that we maintain that Mill Creek property under the purview of Salt Lake City School District as the taxing entity.
Okay. Do I have a second for that? Is that a second? Those hands. Okay. Got a motion and a second that we maintain. Nate, you want to repeat it? Maintain the small section of the Mill Creek as part of the Salt Lake City School District as the taxing entity.
Correct.
Any discussion to that? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. And we're back to 1 through 7 for this, starting with you, Polali.
Corley, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That motion passes. And that completes our consent agenda for tonight. We'll go ahead and move to board member report if that's needed. We'll start with you, Hoeli. If you have something to report in your board member report, go ahead.
The only thing I'll report is, which some people, the board members are here, is, we were really grateful to have hosted, Dr. Biden a couple of weeks ago. It feels like that was a long time ago, but it's 2 weeks ago, right? And so that was beautiful to see our school district, be highlighted and our leaders be there. And it was just great. It was just beautiful to see people in person, teachers. It was nice for me to go into precinct 2, which I don't get to go to sometimes. And so, yeah, that's the only thing I would just say. It was a great experience. I'm looking forward for the graduations that are coming up in 2 weeks that I'll be attending to.
Thanks, Wally. Any other reports? Catherine?
So I would say also that it was wonderful to hear Dr. Biden speak, and also especially followed by our own student, who was very impressive, and by our teacher of the year, who was also impressive. So I really wanted to thank the school for looking its absolute best. The custodial staff at Meadowlark should be commended. The school looked spectacular. It's a beautiful school anyway, but the school looked just perfect. And the student that was chosen to speak was articulate and engaging. And that also our Salt Lake City School District and now Utah Teacher of the Year and finalist for National Teacher of the Year, John Arthur, was funny and charming and articulate as well. And so I think I agree with Willie that it was a really great day for the Salt Lake City School District. So thank you to everyone that made that happen. I would also say that I'd like to thank the SCCs in my district for working so hard on their plans and continuing to work. In particular, West High SCC and SIC is working on innovation in their schedule and for the students. So this this years-long event of the pandemic that has led to a lot of experimentation will have productive outcomes. And I've been impressed with what they're doing and the way they're thinking. And I'd like to thank them publicly for that and the West High faculty as a whole for thinking about what they can do to help students in our district. I know that there are a lot of people that are working really hard with our students right now, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate that ongoing during the summer. I also just want to mention that I would like to ask our board leadership once again to publish the agenda setting committee meetings, the agendas in advance for those meetings, that has happened until this leadership or until the leadership that Melissa started on, that we used to get the copies of the agendas. I'd really like that to continue, and also suggest that, as again, that we used to do before Melissa was in leadership, that we have a third person attend, possibly in a rotating fashion, those meetings. So I think that would add to the transparency and the feeling that that the board is engaged with the planning. And so that would be my report.
Any other board reports? Mohammed? Go ahead, Mohammed. Thank you.
I think Nate was before me. Go ahead, Nate. I see your hands are full out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Bate. I, again, just would echo what everybody said about Dr. Biden. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in attendance at Glendale with y'all. I had another role in the event with Dr. Biden and her advanced team, but a huge shout out to everybody who was involved with that at Glendale and in our school district, and a huge thanks to Yandri, who played a significant role in coordinating just about everybody for our district. So thank you for that, Yandri. I did want to give a brief, just a couple of updates from the Board Finance Committee. We did meet this week earlier. Well, I guess that would have been yesterday. Already feels like a couple days ago. But a couple of the things that we discussed that I wanted to highlight with you all is that we did review the internal audits that were conducted by Alan and his team and folks here at the district. There was nothing significant to report on. Relative to those internal audits, everything is in tip-top shape, and we just give a huge thanks to Alan and his team for conducting those audits that we do on an annual basis. Just for our new board members and any board member that hasn't completed, there's a training that's run through the state auditor's office. Alan will be reaching out to those of us, and in particular our new board members who haven't had a chance to take that training yet. It is administered through the state auditor's office. So do pay attention to any details relative to that training from Alan coming up. And then we will be providing more information to the board at our next meeting for our RFP process for our board attorney. And that's all I have today, and just thank you everybody for being here.
Thanks, Nate. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who is here, for everything that each one of you, including myself, do to ensure that our district continue to be the best choice And it is, being out there at school and seeing First Lady, and I mean, it was just like a mind-boggling. It was just like so surreal, in a way. Out of all of the areas, out of all the districts, Salt Lake is the one that's been selected for that. And also, I had an honor of talking with the student after the event and her parents as well. And it was just like such a humbling moment to be able to just like be there and let the student and the parent know that, yes, I am a school board member, but guess what? When I get up in the morning and I put my shoes, I put them the same way you do. When I go to sleep, I'm not sleeping between the sky and earth, and just like letting people know that we are humans, and so there's going to be less intimidation, and it just like opened a door of opportunity of conversation for me as an immigrant to talk to the parents who are immigrants. And I just like want to really salute the parents for such a wonderful daughter that they have raised. And also I want to salute as well, the every parent for everything you're all doing here to make sure your kids are taken care of. So, and also just one thing, I know I've been receiving emails about like the fact of politicizing the mask wearing at schools and so. And I say to that, God is my witness that I know these individuals here who, come here and vote. They have no political agenda in doing so. Everything that we are doing here, we're doing it just because we want we teach our kids about the importance of science, and we want to show them as well that we do believe in science. And that's what we have been doing. And I'm so proud of everyone here, and I can't wait for my first experience of graduation acceptance to the team. I mean, whoever thought that Muhammad will be out there accepting the graduations? Wow. That's all I can say to that. And again, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mohammed. Christy, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Tonight's been a really great conversation. Appreciate all of the preparation that's gone. And like Catherine said, and everyone else has touched on, I've just so appreciated my SCCs this year. They've just gone beyond making sure that invitations go out with Zoom, that the information goes out, that they have good conversation, and they've all been working so well together. So, it's been great to be able to attend all of those, and I just can't believe that we're at the end of another school year, that here we are. So just appreciate all the work of our principals and staff too. They've just been amazing. I just wanted to tell you about an opportunity that we have as board members, that NSBA is putting on an equity symposium. It's going to be online. It's July 13th and the 14th. And I think if you're interested in talking about actions for equity, social emotional learning, mental health supports, restorative justice, creating safe and inclusive schools, that's what the themes are going to be around that day, those 2 days. And they'll also be telling you a little bit about the DIRE initiative, which is the dismantling of institutional racism in education. So there is a small fee, Alan, sorry, of $150. If you'd like to register, that maybe Alan could do that, for you if you're interested in participating. I think that I was just looking to see, well, if you go to nsba.org, you'll be able to see the lineup, of who's going to be speaking over those couple of days. And I hope that you'll join it. I think that it will be a great starting point for us as we start moving towards having those conversations, around our student achievement plan and what we hope to accomplish this next year, with Dr. Gadsden. Also, Catherine, do you want to give them mark on your calendar. What is that called? For the academy, for the Leadership Academy, what those dates are, so everyone can put those on their calendar.
I'm happy to. The USBA Leadership Academy Committee did say that they were going to limit the number of people from each board. So that is a new thing because they can't fit everyone in to the Leadership Academy, and they've had more and more interest as it's become more and more popular. So so that will be something. They did say that they would prioritize new board members. So that would probably include, we would probably get more people from our board because of that prioritization. So new board members, or everyone, please put these dates in the calendar, and they are in September. They are September 16th, 17th, ending on the 18th, the morning of the 18th. So that's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And it is truly a great opportunity to get good training and to learn a lot of things about being a school board member. So I hope that people that get invited will be able to come. Besides that, we will have other training opportunities that we'll let you know about. There are 2 more scheduled in the evenings, like there was at the end of April. And it was nice to have Christy and Melissa attend that training.
Thanks, Catherine. Dottie, do you want to take a minute? Do you have a report? I know you're always up to something awesome. I'm sure right now it's testing, probably, but
yeah.
Happy to hear whatever you have to say.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to echo what everyone else said about Dr. Biden's visit to Glendale Middle School. I also had the opportunity to speak with Rosa, who is the incredible student who presented at kind of the ceremony. She was really, really incredible. And I got her contact information, so she'll probably be helping me with some stuff. And then also express my gratitude to Mr. Arthur, who is an outstanding teacher and possibly an even more outstanding public speaker. But I can tell why he's Utah's Teacher of the Year, I can say that. And then lastly, I think today was actually my first AP exam. It didn't go that great, but it was okay. I got through it. And so to all the students at West and all the students in our district, we're this close to being done. So I think we can do it. We've got like 3 weeks left of school, less than 3. I think we can make it. So yep, that's it.
Thank you, Dottie. I know for my community, I'd like to say a huge congratulations and thank you to Principal Greg Mon, who was recently accepted a position as superintendent in South Summit, and appreciate the work of Superintendent Madden is already engaging in what leadership will look like at East High going forward, and looking forward to that process and community engagement in the process. And thank you to all board members for all that you're doing and for the way you're participating in our board meetings. I really do appreciate it. Superintendent, I'll turn the time now to you for your report.
Yeah, thank you, President Ford. I just wanted to clarify one thing from the last meeting. At the meeting on May 4th, it was stated that West High may not have followed the process and the development of their land trust plan. And I asked for an investigation after that meeting, and I'm happy to report that we did not find any evidence that the West High SCC did not follow the process, or that there was any wrongdoing on the part of the SCC or West High school personnel. I also wanted to express my congratulations to Principal Mon. He'll be missed. We, like you said, President Ford, we did send out a survey to East High families on leadership characteristics, and we'll be moving forward to find a great replacement for East High. And then the final thing is Dr. Gadsden was in town again last week. We got out to some more schools, which was just fantastic, so much fun. And I'm so proud of the people in this district for the work that they've done this year. It's been really hard, and people have been working hard since the very beginning of the year, since before the beginning of the year, whether we were remote or in person. They've made such a fantastic effort this year. I'm really proud of all of the people, and they're still working hard. And Dottie can attest to that. She's looking forward to getting off early and studying again tonight. But I just think I think everyone learned some more resilience, and that we're capable of doing hard things and doing them well. And so thank you to all of the employees, all of the students and families in the district. You are greatly appreciated. Thank you, President Ford.
Sorry, thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate everybody being here. That concludes our meeting agenda for tonight. I'll call this meeting adjourned, and